Welcome back to the Sunday recap. Doing it on a Monday this week. We decided to move it due to our schedules to this morning, but same exact content going through all the games from Sunday, including the odd Sunday night football game last week. Kevin Monk, Michael Merlo coming to you usually every Sunday at 7:30. Pushed it off to this morning for just this week. Mike, I think we also have a Burrows tomorrow at 11, correct?
Yes, very excited for that.
All right, so check out playoff baseball tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Tough loss yesterday for the Mets, but we will discuss it tomorrow morning. Today, just for football, of course, and we start across the pond with another miserable loss for the Jets and another win for the Vikings, but I'll start with a little Minnesota here before we get into the disaster of the Jets. Good win for Minnesota because their offense was bad. And in a game where their offense was bad, you needed to kind of make sure that the defense was really good. Again, I know it's odd that we keep saying, well, the defense is really good. I think people are overlooking the defense still, including me. But we see him force turnovers all day yesterday. We saw Aaron Rodgers be confused, I think, against the Flores defense. Really looked terrible in yesterday's game. So the Vikings' perspective, that's a good win, even if it's a really sloppy, ugly win on the offensive side of the ball. 13 points scored, or 16 points scored by Minnesota's offense. They also had a pick six from Andrew Van Ginkel, another one of his signature off the end of the line pick sixes. And overall, you got to feel good leaving London. You go into your bye week undefeated 5-0 after that win.
He's done it to both of our teams now, Van Ginkel.
That's New York. That's more of a New York issue than a Van Ginkel issue.
Yeah. No, the Jets, it's an ugly performance. They couldn't run the football on that defense as well. Breece Hall did nothing. Allen did not much. So, again, give Flores credit. He's confused a lot of great quarterbacks now, one of the all-time great quarterbacks. Rodgers had no answers for them. And yeah, you mentioned it. Sam Darnold didn't have a great game. He found Jefferson on some big plays. They got some interesting holding calls. So a couple of those were soft. We can talk about that in a minute if you'd like. But either way, the Jet defense early kind of looked like it was going to be a long day. And then they settled in, right? They settled in around the second quarter. They settled in and they gave their team a chance, right? The Jets had a chance to win this game late, and Rodgers throws the third pick of the game. So it's obviously panic time, I think, with the Jets here. They're 2-3. Rodgers does not look good here. And I think there's a lot of questions now in terms of this coaching staff. And I think more so on Hackett than Saleh, but I'm sure you're unhappy with Saleh as well.
Well, I don't even think there's questions with the coaching staff anymore. I think there's just answers. And I know that you're also at a point where you don't think they're good. So you're not sitting here saying, well, I thought the coaching staff was good 2 weeks ago, and now I'm thinking they're not. I know you're not saying that. Mm-hmm. But the staff is very bad. The most concerning thing is the slow starts. They're one of the only teams in the league that haven't scored an opening drive point this year. That has to change through 5 games now. But we definitely know everything we need to about their coaching staff. Even if the Jets made the playoffs this year, say they keep the staff intact, they win on Monday, and they play a game or two over 500 the rest of the year to find themselves in a wild card spot, or maybe the way Buffalo's played, even a division winner. If you win Monday, anything's up for grabs, really. But if that happened, you still can't bring these guys back. I think the Jets really need a clean slate at the end of the season because this is just a bad group of coaches. However, on the topic of coaching, Monday has to be the make or break game for Saleh, the first of his career, where you're really saying if you lose this game on Monday, he has to get fired, because 2-4 to start this season is a disaster for the Jets. And the fact that they've lost 2 straight games now that feel exactly like Zach Wilson losses is a serious, serious problem for the coaching staff.
Right, and that's an indictment on the coaching staff because, again, this obviously isn't Zach Wilson. This is a better, maybe it's not a better defense, but offensively, I mean, even the weapons are better. So, and the offensive line is supposedly better. Even though they have it, Kevin, the offensive line is supposed to be improved and not look good yesterday.
No.
I mean, what's going on there, too? That's another issue. So
that, I think, is another coaching issue. And just to throw like a little nugget out there, he's obviously not a guy that gets talked about because he's a position coach. The offensive line coach, Keith Carter, is renowned bad line coach. He was in Tennessee, and Taylor Lewan has openly talked about how bad Keith Carter is at coaching the line, and his relationships with players are horrible. So that is a bad look for the Jets staff. And you also had Mekhi Becton last year calling out Keith Carter on social media after games while he was still on the team. So bad look for the Jets there as well. Another year.
Are for the Eagles and doing pretty well.
Yeah.
No, there's a lot wrong. There's a lot wrong here, and I can't believe we're sitting here saying this. But I mean, even just looking at like it's not like we're not just seeing things, right? Like Rodgers was terrible yesterday.
He's very bad.
3 picks. He did he complete 50% of his passes? Quick math.
Just over, but
just over
a lot of throws too. I don't know if you were able to watch the end of the game yesterday.
Yes.
The throw to Garrett Wilson.
Yes.
I know he was probably on his back foot. You couldn't see it on the broadcast, and I haven't watched all 22 of it, but he has Garrett Wilson wide open for a touchdown that potentially wins the game, and he throws it about 9 yards out of bounds.
A lot of drops too. I mean, I know Lazard's going to get a lot of blame for that. Just a ton of drops as well. I mean, a Lazard drop set up the pick 6. That's a different game if Lazard catches that ball, which was a catchable ball for 20 yards, the play right before the pick 6.
Yep. That is a huge momentum swing, that sequence. 2 other plays that I have to go to that I think, one, put them in a tougher position, but I'm not going to lose sleep over this one. It's Saleh deciding to go for it on 4th and 1 in the first half, down by 10. They were about the 30-yard line, and I understood why you were going for it on 4th down. But you run an awful play.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Orlovsky broke it down. You need a yard. And Braylon Allen gets the handoff 9 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Well, how does that make sense?
Yeah. Now we got to get 10.
They lose a yard on that play. And then on the following drive, Minnesota's only offensive touchdown of the day, the play before it, Darnold throws a pass to the end zone, I think to Addison. It's behind him, hits off the hands, goes charity hop to Sauce Gardner for an interception, and he drops it.
Yep.
Now, I am removing Sauce Gardner. I removed him before this week, and I didn't even say this to you. I'm removing him from the elite category of cornerbacks for 2 reasons. Well, first of all, he actually hasn't been great in coverage this year, so he's having that problem, but I'm not even coverage aside. There's 2 reasons why I can't make him an elite corner now. 1, he can't catch anything. He has a serious drop issue as a corner. He had an easy pick 6 last year against Dallas that Dak served him up. He dropped it. He had the easy pick yesterday, dropped it. He has no ball skills. He rarely ever even plays a ball for an interception. So that's a huge issue I have for a corner. The second is he doesn't get dirty in the run game. He'll get involved, but he's 2 hands out, arms extended, trying to tackle, trying to just grab a guy, wrap him up. Never really makes an enforcing tackle in the run game and sometimes shies away from it. So I'm out on him right now, which really shows you a lot of stuff is going wrong for the Jets because he was the premier franchise player as far as homegrown guys go.
No, but the best guy
he's bad.
The best player on the team, you could say. And 100%. And then, even going back to last year a little bit, and then early this year, a lot of holding penalties. They're, whether they're looking for it or not with him, they're targeting him, you could say. The eyes are a little bit more glued to him now because of coaches, letting the refs know. Who the hell knows? But now he's getting those calls as he's not getting the calls that went his way earlier in his career. So that's also another issue with Sauce. So it's an interesting start. Let's see if he can bounce back. But this team has a lot of work to do. And against a Bills team who played terribly this week, that's going to be a tough challenge. Even though this is a game the Jets win, right? The Jets win this game at home against Buffalo, prime time even. So let's see if they're able to do it. I don't think so. I think the way Buffalo played last week, they're going to be even more motivated to come in and kind of put the Jets down, really kind of start to bury the Jets. So we'll see what happens.
I think a loss this week, it could get the coach fired. And I'll say this too. I know he's a 4-time MVP, but we know Rodgers played bad yesterday, whatever. His body language and his on-field leadership, based on what we see, is just not good enough when you're no longer throwing 48 touchdowns a year and just dominating. Like it has to be better.
When's the last time
he's more of a leader?
When's the last time he threw 3 picks in a game?
Oh, I've never even seen that.
That's what I was saying yesterday. Like I don't even remember the last. Like
I think I saw the last time he threw 2 picks in a game was in 2021. And obviously he didn't play last year, so it's really only 1 year in between.
Right.
But I've never seen that guy throw 3 interceptions in a game.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I was like, when I saw that, like I saw the 3rd pick, I was like starting to think.
And
I've ever seen that.
I'll take the Van Ginkel one away from him. Like, just good play usually doesn't happen by a defensive end. Drop back quick. Van Ginkel's done that 3 or 4 times in his career, so he's good at it. But the other 2 were awful. The last one that ended the game was just a horrible throw that Gilmore picked. Horrible throw trying to go back shoulder to Mike Williams. Big height advantage there. And also that play gets predictable. They're very predictable. They're very bad. They're very boring. They don't run the ball at all well. I mean, what happened? Where's Breece Hall, man? Like, where is the conscious effort to get him open in space on a screen, on any sort of creative run play? Is nothing.
Yeah, the Rodgers is at a point now where, he can overcome a bad offensive line, and he can overcome the drops with the wide receivers, and he can't overcome no run game here. He can't do that. And he can't overcome a terrible play caller that he wanted here, by the way.
Yeah.
And he can't overcome a bad head coach, and that it's not even a knock on Rodgers. Not many guys could overcome that. Maybe Rodgers 10 years ago could have overcome that, but at this point in his career, he just can't. So there's a lot wrong with the Jets, and the blame will go towards Rodgers, especially after a game like that. But then you also have to think of the other side. There's not much right with the organization right now. And, you said it last week about the fact that Rodgers didn't get the chance to play last season because I think it was more overhyped that, if Rodgers was on this team, they would be so great. They might have won 10 games last year with that roster and Aaron Rodgers, right? I don't think this would have been a special season, but this season would have been a lot different because maybe the coaches are gone, like you mentioned last week, and maybe there's even more of an emphasis on the offensive line, even though they did do a lot with it. And they realize they got to get other weapons and things like that. So, they improved the team, but maybe it wasn't enough, and it wasn't enough with the coaching because they didn't do anything.
And incredibly enough, last point before we move on, if they win Monday night, everyone's back on board because they're in first place in the AFC East, which has been underwhelming, and we'll talk about it later when we talk about Buffalo. Yeah. Let's go to probably the best game of the day, Baltimore and Cincinnati. An awesome game between 2 incredible quarterbacks, 2 of my favorite quarterbacks to watch, playmakers all over. What did you think about this one?
Trying to think of a time Lamar Jackson legitimately carried his team like this. I can't think of another time. I just rewatched this game about an hour ago. Lamar Jackson played, and I'm in and out on Lamar, but I thought Lamar legitimately played like an MVP yesterday. He did everything he possibly could to win this game. He broke out of how many sacks, either threw the ball away, threw that crazy touchdown to Likely. He was unbelievable. Yeah, Henry had a pretty nice day. He had the big run at the end to really make his stats look a little bit better. But this team, with Lamar, who does this regularly, but just who's he throwing the ball to? I mean, he's throwing to the 3rd string tight end. They finally got Andrews involved a little bit. Like, who is this guy? Bateman's a boss. Bateman's making big plays.
Sucks too, though.
Zay Flowers had a nice day. Flowers finally had a really nice day. But you got Lamar throwing a bunch of nobodies, making plays with his legs. He was so impressive in this one, and they find a way to win a big division game. They own the Bengals, just own the Bengals now. What is that? Lamar's 9th win, I think, against him in a certain amount of years. So just an impressive win. And they look like the class of the AFC right now. They really do.
The Ravens offense, I mean, you're right. You got Charlie Kolar making plays yesterday. Did you see his post-game press conference?
No.
His post-game press conference was great. He's like, I'm not going to answer anything. At the end of it, he goes, by the way, I'm not going to answer anything seriously. So if you want that, you probably shouldn't come over here. And then he starts it. They're like, what'd you see today? Getting involved, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, well, the defense is so focused on Isaiah and Mark that they forget about the big fat white guy running up the seam. And that's when I'm really able to thrive. And he was just great in his post game.
Yeah.
Like, totally knows his role, knows who he is on the offense. Glad to have a big day. But besides the 2 tight ends, and who really, I'm having trouble gauging. What do you think here? Are these guys both top 10 tight ends, or are they both 11 through 20 tight ends?
Who?
Andrews and Likely.
I don't know, because what the hell is Andrews doing? I mean,
I don't know.
Like, yeah, he made a couple of plays, but he's like a glorified tackle now.
Yeah.
So I don't know. No, I would say that it's 11 through 20. That Andrews at this point is definitely not top 20 tight end. I almost feel bad for him. Lamar missed him for the what about a touchdown? Yeah. Lamar missed him. He underthrew the ball, and he has to slot. He has to like dive for it, and he catches it at the 3. So that would have been a touchdown for him. And then there was a play where it was a big first down, and Lamar had 2 guys going that to the same way across the field. And I guess he couldn't throw it to Andrews. There was a guy in his face, but 2 seconds later, it throws it over Andrews to the receiver. That would have been a big play too for Andrews. Like, it's almost like he's trying to miss him. I know he's not, but I almost feel bad for him. I really do.
They have those guys. They have Zay Flowers, who I think is a wide receiver 2. And out of the whole receiving group, he's the only guy that's a true top 3 receiver.
Yeah.
On the Ravens, but he's really high-end wide receiver 2. And then with Henry, is there a running back in the league you'd rather have?
In that scenario, no. I don't think.
Like, I think he's just the best running back in the NFL right now. It's a down year for running backs, and McCaffrey's not on the field.
Right. I guess, yeah, he's been the best running back this season. And I think in that offense, though, when you it's almost like, with the Giants, the earth, wind, and fire. Remember the comparison with Ahmad Bradshaw and Brandon Jacobs. You have your quick, speedy guy with Lamar who can run the ball, and then you have your guy that could basically do everything. I mean, obviously, Derrick Henry can run, and when you need him in 3rd, 4th, and short, he can pick up those 1 to 2 yards for you in any scenario. So I think it's the perfect fit there. They've been great. It was a clinic in terms of play calling yesterday, and that Bengal defense is terrible. And I put out a clip on Harley, and it was clickbait. Okay, it was literally clickbait. I was like, I need something quick. Let me just put this together. And it was me saying after 0-1 that the Bengals weren't going to make the playoffs. And I didn't even believe it. I was like, whatever. Let's get people talking. And it actually came to be true. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're terrible. And I think, Zach Taylor has to be on the hot seat at this point. I mean, does he ever get there? Did they ever fire him? I don't know.
I think he's got to be. I've had Zach Taylor on the hot seat since the year they went to the Super Bowl. So,
yeah, I've never been a Zach Taylor fan. So,
you think with the LSU thing, the fan fantasy in me says they're going to hire Joe Brady.
Okay, interesting.
Because he's had a nice little revival in Buffalo.
Yep.
Burrow will say, I love him as a play caller. Chase will say, I love him as a play caller. Those are the only 2 guys that matter.
And they'll get him in there.
And they'll get Joe Brady if he has a good year with Buffalo here. Let me ask you this. I've been wanting to ask you this since Friday Burrows, and I keep forgetting. Starting a franchise today. Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow, who's your quarterback?
Today, Lamar Jackson. But if you asked me that last season, I would have told you Joe Burrow.
I think Lamar has absolutely passed Burrow because of the amount he's on the field, which is crazy because people have tried to slap Lamar with the durability issue, but obviously Burrow is more of a concern health-wise.
That's the biggest thing.
And really, when they're out there, Lamar at this stage right now, I get that he's probably in a better system, better offense, better team, but Lamar looks better. 2 MVPs doesn't hurt his case either.
Yeah. But also, can you say that? Like, I think the Bengals have the best offensive line they've had in years. They have 2 backs that they can use, and they're successful, right? Moss and Brown is a better scenario than just Mixon. Okay. And you have 2 of the better wide receivers in the league. You got a couple of tight ends you can use. Like, you got an offensive coach. Is it a better offensive system? I think it's better in Cincinnati.
I'd say they're just more competent. Baltimore feels more competent. They feel like they have an identity every week.
No,
And
I'm not disagreeing with you that it's
yeah,
better
no,
right
but
now,
you're
but in
right.
terms of situation, I would take Cincinnati's in a heartbeat.
It's not like Burrow's on Carolina or on I don't even know, just a terrible team. It's not like he's in Pittsburgh or Cleveland's offense.
Yeah.
He's in a good offense. I just love what the Ravens do on a weekly basis. Harbaugh and Monken and Lamar, everyone included. I know Harbaugh's not an offensive guy per se, but he's involved. And they just have an identity on a weekly basis that what they're doing. Their players know what they're doing, and they are going to get creative and make it so that they're going to beat you with the same thing they do every week. It's run, 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 set up easy pass plays for Lamar, use your tight ends, and it's every week it's the same exact deal for 3 or 4 or 5 years now with Lamar. A little bit different between Monken and Roman, but they're just going to beat you with it.
And by the way, like the offense for the offense for Cincinnati's playing great of the past 3 weeks. I mean, they're very good. The problem right now is the defense. I mean, the major problem right now is the defense.
Defense is an absolute disaster. They have the worst secondary in the NFL. They have 3 of the, I think, lowest 10 corners in the league, or maybe it's 3 of the lowest 10 secondary players in the league in rating, in coverage grade. So they are a mess defensively.
They're banged up too. The corners, they're banged up there, but still, yeah. I mean,
and Hendrickson doesn't even want to be there, but he's still the best player on the defense. He doesn't even want to be there. He wanted his contract extension, didn't get it. They're a mess. And I maybe it goes back to what you had brought up so many times before the season about there might be a culture issue in Cincinnati that went under the radar a little bit because something is just not right. Even bad defenses have good weeks. They haven't had a good week except for against New England in week 1.
Yeah.
And let's see the trend. Every team has had a good week against New England. Have they even scored 16 points in a game since that game? The Patriots. I don't think they have.
No, it's and Lou. What Lou Amorello? I don't know how to pronounce it. Anarumo. Sorry, he's been a hot name for years now. Considered the best defensive coordinator in the league the past few years. So, again, it's like it's a big surprise that this defense, even with injuries, like you think the coaching can get them through, but it can't. It's been terrible. So that's been their undoing here is that defense, and they're sitting at 1-4. They got to go play the Giants now, which sounds like an easy game early, but I mean the Giants have played much better since week 1. I mean, there's no denying that. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here with this Cincinnati team. Are they staring at 1-5? But even so, 2-4 doesn't sound great.
We got the Giants coming up in a little bit. They are a win of the week. I accidentally messed up the graphic. They won 29-20 on the road against the Seahawks. They moved to 2-3. The Houston Texans hosted the Buffalo Bills this week. Stephon Diggs revenge game, reunion game, whatever you want to call it. Awkward handshake at the end with Josh Allen. Clearly they don't like each other. But the Bills playmakers, Mike, we were both so high on the Bills. We're both so high on Josh Allen. The Bills wide receivers are awful. Awful.
Yeah, and I was just rewatching this game, and it's starting to be. It looks like it's starting to become an issue. Where, as the first 3 weeks, you're like, this isn't an issue. What were people worried about? Now it's 9 for 30. I mean, Jesus Christ, he's 9 for 30. They're able to run the ball, do a good job there, but it's seriously starting to become a problem here.
And it's the issue of teams don't have to respect your receivers at all. So they're just going to man up. They're going to load the box anyway so that Allen can't run, so that Cook can't run. And all you have to really watch for in the receiving game right now is Kincaid, because nobody else is much of a threat. And Cook, but nobody else is really much of a threat at all. In my blog for this week that comes out Thursday morning, in my week 5, what I need to see from every team was Buffalo receivers. Matt Collins almost has an early deep ball, doesn't. Keon Coleman is just very average. Curtis Samuel, why'd you even sign him? Just nothing from him. Absolutely terrible. Dawson Knox, is he even playing? Like, that's how you feel about it because Kincaid's tight end 1, but Knox is getting paid and he is irrelevant. This is just a bad group of pass catchers.
Yeah, no, I felt great after 3 weeks about this team. They're my Super Bowl pick, feeling awesome. And now the past 2 weeks, even just like I didn't even care about the Raven game's throwaway game. I kind of knew that was going to happen. But this week is definitely concerning. Then you have McDermott, bonehead decision making at the end. They're throwing the ball 3 times there. Gives them a chance late. So just bad play. Yeah, I mean, that is just I can't believe McDermott basically loses them that football game.
Yeah, and McDermott, this is one of those situations where we'll sit here at 3-0, and I was early on the McDermott's a good coach train. When he was with Tyrod Taylor and they broke their playoff drought, I was saying I really like this staff. I really like what they're doing. But these are the days where it is totally justified for me and everyone else that watches this team and expects this team to play well. These are the days where you say, this is not the coach. This is not the guy to put them over the top. This might be a guy to get your team to competence, to get your team to a good level of competing every year. He'll have your team ready to play every week. But when he has to make critical decisions, he has come up short.
You know, an argument that I've heard the past few weeks, in comparing Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes is that Patrick Mahomes has had Andy Reid and, it's the luck of the draw. But, Patrick Mahomes has gone to a situation. I'm not taking anything away from him. He's been with one of the greatest offensive minds the league's ever seen. And look at what Josh Allen has dealt with in terms of coaches and, turnover with the offensive coordinators. He gets his offensive coordinators jobs, or in some cases, the offensive coordinator loses the job. So I think it's absolutely fascinating here that Josh Allen's never had an offensive coach. And if he did have one of those great offensive minds, what it would look like. Would it look any different? Would he play any better? Would these receivers be able to do a better job? Can you scheme guys open? So that's something that's interesting to think about with Josh Allen. But McDermott cost them a game, or whoever was, do you want to blame Brady for calling 3 straight pass plays back up on your own 5?
Always the coach, because he's got to shut that down.
He's got to say in the headset, Brady, you're an effing dumbass. Yeah. This is not happening.
This is the Dan Quinn situation. When Kyle Shanahan is throwing passes with a 2-touchdown lead in the Super Bowl in the 4th quarter, you got to get on the headset and say, hey, man, 1st down, 2nd down, we're running. Yeah. 3rd down, we need a 1st, we'll throw. But like in field goal range in that game, that's the head coach's job. Obviously, Buffalo not in field goal range. It's the head coach's job to override that. And here's what I'd say about Andy Reid and Mahomes. Sure, it helps, but you can't knock Mahomes for that, of course. I know you weren't. But Andy Reid, offensive mind aside, I don't care about the offensive thing because Josh Allen's always produced. He's always put up points. So offensive coaching is not necessarily an issue. Head coaching is a problem because Reid with Mahomes point out a time where under 2 minutes in a game, under 4 minutes in a game, that they had a chance at winning, whether they were a score down or a score up, but they also had a chance at losing, where Andy Reid pushed the wrong button in the last 5 years. No. Can't point out a time.
No, you can't. 100%.
So I am not in that argument of the offensive play calling coordinator thing. Has it helped Mahomes? Of course. I mean, that's how it is. But they've also surrounded him with better teams. That is a Bean issue in Buffalo. I don't think Bean has done the greatest job with Allen. They seem to view Allen as the great player he is, right? We all know that he is just a freak. Right. I think the greatest athlete overall to ever play the quarterback position. Complete athlete. I think he's the greatest. He's not the greatest runner. He's not the fastest. But when you take into consideration the size, the arm, the running ability, toughness, feels like the greatest athlete to ever play the quarterback position for me. They look at him the same way, I think. And they say, well, Josh can carry the load of this offense. McDermott and his team just need, and his staff just need playmakers on defense. And then we'll replenish with Josh. I mean, is there a 1st-round pick besides Kincaid on this offense? I don't think there is. Cook was a 3rd-round pick.
Yeah.
Coleman was a 2nd. Forget Samuel and Hollins. I don't think either of them were 1st-round picks.
Guys that you drafted. Guys that you drafted, or just in general?
The guys you drafted. Maybe Deion Dawkins was one.
Right.
But before Josh Allen, And I don't even think he was. I think Dawkins was day 2 pick, but either way. And Allen is like alone in this offense right now.
He should ask out. He should go to a team that has similar jersey colors.
A coach he loves.
Coach he loves. He should ask out. We were talking about this.
They have a really good quarterback too. The Giants have a really good quarterback also.
They might.
So let's not lose sight of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Allen needs more on the Texans side of things. You got to feel great after that win because you shouldn't have won that game. And you come out and you beat a top team in the AFC and you continue to climb. They're going to win that division so easily. Yeah. Titans, Jacksonville, and Indianapolis, all bad.
Yep.
They're going to win that division cakewalk. They might clinch. They'll probably clinch a playoff spot before any other team because of how bad the second place team in their division will be. The gap will be like 5 games by the time that they clinch.
Offensively, they played well, and Stroud spread the ball around big time. Yeah. A ton of guys had catches. Collins comes out of this game early. I think he's going to be okay. But he threw to a lot of different receivers in this game. And defensively, obviously, they played great against Allen. And, they got beat a little bit in the run game. But other than that, they'll take that. I don't know. Like, you feel good because it's a close game and you beat a good team. But what you did defensively to that football team, I think you should probably come out of that game saying, if we don't beat them when Allen plays like that, when the hell are we ever going to beat them? Yeah. So Stroud outplayed them big time. Stroud has a great game. Again, they couldn't run the ball well. They got a couple of guys out. Akers had an off day. A Goombalawe. There we go. Good job. He was okay. He was big as a pass catcher for them. So, I mean, you feel good, you win the game, but it's like, if you're not going to beat Allen playing like that, when are you ever going to beat Allen?
Houston, I can agree with that. Houston feels like the 4th best team in the AFC to me right now.
Yes.
I think Kansas City, Baltimore, and Buffalo are all better.
Yes.
And that is the negative takeaway from the game. Buffalo, you're right. You're not going to if they play that game 10 times, Buffalo wins 8.
Right.
That's how it felt yesterday.
To be 20-20 and essentially say, hey, win this game in regulation. Let's not even bring it to overtime. Like, Buffalo's like pissed that they weren't able to steal that one.
Yeah, and they win though, so I think you got to feel good about the regular season win. You got to feel good about the 4-1 record. You got to feel good about losing Collins and winning that game because Collins has separated himself so far from Diggs and Dell and really just anyone, Mixon, Schultz, whoever you want to throw in. He is by far the best player
number one
in that offense besides Stroud, which is what people expected over the summer was Collins to be the guy. But he is so much better than the other two. And that's not a knock on the other two, but Collins is really good.
Yeah. No, Collins is great. Collins is great. He's like emerged as, and I had questions whether he could be a number 1 or not. He's clearly a 1. I mean, he's great. So give credit to him. They gave him the extension too during the offseason. So, just everything going right now in Houston. And they have their quarterback for a very long time. So good for them. And a coach too. That's really good.
They do. What do we have next here on the slate after Texans Bills? It is Green Bay at Los Angeles Rams. Don't need to go too far into this game. It's the 1-3 Rams lose a game to Green Bay. Once again, though, it pops up here that Jordan Love has a turnover thing.
Yeah.
That
Love
was the worst play of the season yesterday.
Yeah, Love, is he regressing? Or are we going to give him the benefit of the doubt here that he started off bad last season? He's got the ankle injury now. Are we going to just say, what, he's going to get better as the year goes on? Or are we going to start to have questions? I'm not going to question anything. I'm not going to say it. I still think this guy is going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the league. I think you're coming off of an injury that you suffered in week 1, and you're really getting back into the swing of things. But, to have that game be close when, you probably shouldn't have had it against a really beat up Rams team, I guess you got to put that on the quarterback.
I like Love, but the only question I do have right now is which Jordan Love are we going to get for majority of his career? The second half of the season Love from last year or the first half from last year? And that's what we're seeing this year. The interception that he threw yesterday, if Will Levis threw that, would have been the most viral interception of all time. And Jordan Love threw it, so I do feel it's getting swept under the rug just slightly. That was as abysmal and disgusting of a quarterback play as I have ever seen in my life. You were at a point where you were better off taking the safety. I think he was trying to throw it away. I think that's what we're seeing on a lot of these pick sixes this year is quarterbacks are trying to throw it away and not getting it to the
Not getting
sideline.
enough on it, yeah.
That happened to Levis in week 1 against Chicago. That happened to Love here. It happened to Jones in the preseason against Houston.
Yep.
Where guys are trying to throw it away and you're almost better off just eating it. Positive for Green Bay, my performer of the week is Tucker Kraft. And I have been high on Kraft since they drafted him. I think he's probably the best blocking tight end in the NFL right now. And the fact that they're getting him involved in the pass game is impressive. 66-yard touchdown and a 7-yard screen touchdown yesterday sealed the deal for the Packers in their win. Good win for Green Bay, though. They had to leave with a win. And they do against the Rams, who are just dead with their injuries and everything this season. Rams are dead. I'm going to throw this one to you, and then we'll move off this game. Is there any knock on Sean McVay, who I literally told you last week I think might be the best coach in the NFL? So I'm very high on McVay. But is there any knock on him for a couple losing seasons here since the Super Bowl? Or is it totally injury related?
Totally injury related, especially. I mean, they're moving the ball. They're doing a good job. I'm looking at the box score now. I mean, Stafford was okay in this game, but they had a couple of nothing receivers having some big days, and they ran the ball well. So, just to get anything out of this offense right now with how banged up they are up front and with their 2 best receivers is impressive enough for me to say, hey, this guy could still coach.
Yeah, and this is against the team that we expect to be competing in January.
Yeah,
for at least an NFC Championship game appearance in Green Bay.
That's the Rams have the ball going, on the opponent's side of the field late in the game, so
I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't being a McVay lover and too biased towards it, or if there was maybe there's some outside opinions that think he's just no good.
No, he's good.
He's great. And if they didn't win that Super Bowl with Stafford, I think there'd be a lot of urgency here. There would be a big sense of, okay, we're 1-4. We got to flip this thing. But now it's kind of, all right, well, we got the Super Bowl with Stafford. We're kind of immortal here. It's okay.
This is fine. Now, I wonder if they run it back one more year with Stafford.
He's still good.
I know he is.
But they might be in that group.
Does Stafford want to take this beating? That's the question.
Yeah, and would Stafford play over a first-round pick? Would you be able to Jordan Love this and say, Stafford, give us whatever you got left here, but we're going to take Quinn Ewers. We're going to take Carson Beck, Cam Ward.
McVay has to be, yeah. I mean, they're going to draft
Sanders.
They're going to draft a quarterback.
Because there's one thing McVay actually hasn't had is the franchise quarterback. He's had good quarterbacks that aren't permanent.
Yeah, okay.
Stafford, I think we've gotten more years out of than anyone expected with the Rams.
He hasn't developed his own quarterback yet.
Yeah, he needs that guy, I think, to get him back into being excited about being a contender every year. And I the way Les Snead is drafted, you'd have to expect he could draft that guy too.
Interesting.
All right, win of the week. Giants go into Seattle, the 12th man, and pick up the 29-20 win.
Take it away. Never thought they'd win this game. I was all my focus has been on the Mets. I was talking to my friend who's a huge Giants fan. I'm like, the Giants don't exist in my world right now. This is Saturday night. I thought this was a blowout, no Neighbors, no Singletary, and they're able to pick up a big win. Kevin, this game shouldn't have been this close. I mean, I saw an angle of the Eric Gray fumble at the goal line that the Seahawks ran back and flipped it, 14-point swing. I saw a replay that saw that he was in. Whatever. They don't let that bother them. What a job by Daboll. What a job by Daniel Jones. I mean, we're going to joke about it, but, he's played well. I mean, he's played really well since week 1. So, I don't know what to do here. He's looked really good. He was throwing a Slayton all day. He had Wan'Dale open a couple of times. They used the tight end Johnson for the first time all year, which was good. And again, the offensive line is much improved, playing very well, and they're able to run the ball with Tracy, who got his first start, who was great in this one. So it was just a great day for the Giants, and the defense even showed up. Kevin, Dexter Lawrence has to be in consideration for the best non-quarterback in the league. I mean, this guy is a freak, an absolute freak. And he put on a clinic yesterday.
He's a monster, and I love watching him play great because how many weeks we see this in New York with both teams, Quinnen and Dexter. Dexter's better, but we see these guys get doubled and triple teamed every play to the point where they almost become invisible in some games.
Yep.
And we know in terms of football, that has a huge impact. But the days that Lawrence can actually dominate is as fun to watch as any player in the entire league to dominate. He's awesome. He's just sensational as an energizer and as a player.
Well, it's like he has 6 sacks and he's a half a sack behind Hutchinson. And it's like a nose tackle is not really supposed to do this. You know, like a guy playing inside is not supposed to have this sort of impact on a game. And he's everything for that defense. He is the defense. So yeah, he's remarkable. Burns got involved yesterday at a big sack on 4th down. Kayvon had some pressures. He had a nice day. Everybody was involved against the Seattle team who, listen, I mean, through 3 weeks, they were undefeated. They went to Detroit. They got, a loss handed to them. But this is a game I never thought the Giants would win. And without Neighbors, they're able to come up with a win. That's big.
So are we now back on the Jones, Dable, Shane train?
I'm certainly back on the Dayball train. I'm getting around on the Shane train as well. I mean, his draft class basically gave them a win yesterday, right?
Yeah.
And the improvements they made to the offensive line as well, it handed them a win yesterday. So, listen, Kevin, this team should be at the very least 3-2. And I mean, you want to say they should have beat Dallas? I'm not really going to say that, but they should be 3-2, and they could have beat Dallas at home. I mean, I don't know. I'm so confused. With how I'm supposed to feel, but they're competitive. They're playing good football, and see where it takes you. You beat Cincinnati. I might be back in fully.
This seems really confusing because first, my advice to Giants fans would be don't get into the long-term projections. I know we just kind of touched on it a second and did that, so it broke my own rule. But focus on the Cincinnati game. Don't get into, is Jones going to be our quarterback next year? Is Daboll going to be, is he the coach of the future? Is Shane the GM of the future? I'd say just take it one game and then look back at it towards the end of the year, late December, you'll have a good gauge on how you feel. Right now, very confusing, very tough to gauge. I want to throw a quick coaching credit to Daboll, who we both speak highly of. How about up 9, kneeling the 2-point conversion at the end of the game, which is something that coaches should know to do, but coaches don't do. And as a viewer, you're not watching that and saying, all right, well, they're kicking the extra point to take a 10-point lead, whatever. Because if that does get blocked and taken back for 2 with under a minute, Seattle just needs a touchdown to score, to tie, or to win with 2-point conversion. Mm-hmm. So those types of, risk elimination moves by a coach are impressive to me because 25 coaches in the league are probably kicking the PAT there and not thinking twice just because that's what you do. But when that 1 in a million block happens and the team goes down and scores a touchdown, that coach is getting shredded for not doing it.
And so you just saw a kick get blocked, the play before. So,
by the way, Isaiah Simmons is such an incredible athlete. I can't believe he didn't turn into a stud player in any way on defense. I thought he would have had some sort of dominance as a linebacker or as a safety, and he really hasn't. But showing off his athleticism on that field goal block, he was he could have kissed the kicker.
Yeah, I mean, he has his role, on the defense, but yeah, I mean, he's not that player that anybody thought he would be. And, I agreed with you. I would have drafted him that year. I really want, I was like that he'd be sick to have on your team. But hey, he makes a big play and he wins the Giants a game. Basically, they're about to blow it. You kind of just got the sense they're going to blow this game, and they don't. They find a way to win. And again, give Daboll credit for keeping his guys in. Down 7-0 after should have been being up 7-0. That's tough to come back from, and they're able to do that. This should have been a blowout here in Seattle, but they get the win.
Last thing I'd say about the Giants is if you're watching the entire NFC and you think there is no chance that the Giants can get into the playoffs, if you are absolutely eliminating the fact that this might be a playoff team, you're wrong. You're totally incorrect. They are not far off the pace of the bad wild cards in the NFC.
No.
They're not. In a full season, big picture, they have a chance. They got to take it 1 week at a time. I know that they are. The fans also have to, as I just said. But they win this week in Cincinnati, Mike. Everything's on the table.
I mean, again, like 257 yards, 67.7 completion percentage, 109.6 passer rating, 38 rushes, 38 rushing yards. I mean, like the quarterback objectively is playing well. He's playing good football right now. So he played well against Dallas. He missed a couple of deep balls. He hits one this week to Slayton, a couple to Slayton, one for a touchdown, one on the sideline. He got penalized for the stupid pointing thing. So I don't know, Kevin. I don't know.
If you think Jones, I have a lot of friends who are like, yeah, well, Jones can't do this. Jones can't do that. And it's always the deep ball, usually. Always the deep ball is the big argument. And he doesn't throw the deep ball well at all. He usually doesn't even throw it to the open deep guy because I think he's lost the confidence to throw the deep ball in the NFL. But if you're really nitpicking like that and saying he's playing poorly because of that, then you're just not going to be satisfied until Mahomes or Allen or someone is your quarterback.
Yeah.
You have to be comfortable in this middle ground of game manager. Because most teams would love a game manager. There's 15 teams in the league, 16 teams in the league that either have a guy as good or worse than Jones. There's not that many teams with a guy that's definitely better.
Well, right. And I think, we see these guys, right? We see Darnold go to a better situation and figure it out, right? This season. We see Baker go to better situations and figure it out. And we see Geno go to better situations and then figure it out. Again, this isn't like a defense that Jones should be the guy for the next 10 years. But if the Giants are now able to really improve the situation around Daniel Jones, why can't this be a situation where he didn't go somewhere else? They just changed everything around him and then he figured it out. Right? Like you finally gave him a competent offensive line. You finally gave him a number one wide receiver. Now with the receivers and a good offensive line, you now bring in a running game with a couple of different backs. Like, I'm not saying this is going to be, he figures it out, but look at the guys that we're possibly comparing Jones to if he was off this team this year after the season, because I've heard it, this is a guy that could potentially go to a situation and have a career resurgence. Why can't it just be with the same team with the coach with, basically year 2 because he got hurt in week, 4 or 5 last season. And then he's hurt twice last year. And then an improved receiver room and an improved offensive line. Why can't that be the case? I don't know.
I'll put this example out there and maybe we'll clip it and see what people think about it. But when you compare Jones, the guy to compare him to is Sam Darnold. Darnold in 2019 was at this pivotal point with the Jets. They lose week 1, bad loss against Buffalo, and then he gets mono and he misses a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That season, he was 7-6 as a starter, 19 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. He had over 3,000 yards. And he looked competent. He looked like, this kid can be good. We got to get some players around him.
Yeah.
They go to the draft. They draft Mekhi Becton, who was obviously to support Darnold. But Joe Douglas ripped the whole team down that year. in his first season, and he said, I want a top pick. I want my quarterback. And really, they wanted Trevor Lawrence.
Right.
The risk you play in moving on from the average middle of the pack young quarterback, and Jones is not young anymore. Darnold was 23, but the risk you play in moving on from these guys that have potential and have the ability to at least game manage is you might draft someone that sucks. That's what, and no one talks about that.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about we need to draft a guy who's going to be an MVP type quarterback. You also might draft Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields. You might Mitch Trubisky. You might draft a guy that stinks. Nobody ever likes to consider that possibility for their team.
Well, again, Jones has things to work on that can be fixed, I think, this season. And, again, he's coming off a torn ACL. So, it's not the biggest injury in the world, but I'm sure early in this season, it's in the back of his mind, right? That's number one. Number two, hits the couple of deep balls to Slayton yesterday. He's going to start to gain confidence there. And I know that, I know it never seemed like it, but before this season and even last season, and they didn't do it much in 22, but before then, he used to hit a couple deep balls, enough where you'd say, okay, this is good enough for what he is. Now, didn't do it early this season, didn't do it in 22 because they didn't call those kinds of plays with him. But now that they're airing it out, I just think he's going to get more comfortable doing it. So maybe I'm talking myself into thinking, yeah, you know what, Kevin, at $40 million a year for the next 2 years, it's a middle of the pack quarterback. And that's where the money is, right? At 40 a year. Maybe it's enough. Maybe he's the 15th, 16th best quarterback in the league, and he's paid like the 13th, 14th. Not the worst thing in the world, right?
Exactly right. That's a rational way to look at it. It's also rational to say I want to try and upgrade, but to completely throw him out at this point might be a mistake. And I think that they're going to run into an interesting decision at the end of the year. Real quick, we'll wrap up this Pittsburgh-Dallas game. How odd was this? Starts 2 hours late.
I fell asleep.
Starts 2 hours late. The game sucks. Nobody can score. But the reason I put this game in our rundown here is because we've had the conversation on the Steelers a lot.
Mm-hmm.
This feels like a bad loss for them at home, where Dallas really couldn't move the ball, and Pittsburgh just is lacking offensively in a big way. And now they've lost 2 games to teams that I don't think very highly of. One that's good in Dallas. They're good, not great. Wild card type of team, probably bounce in the first round of the playoffs. And a Colts team that probably won't win more than 6 games this year. And the Steelers drop both of those.
Yeah, let's Dallas off the hook. They have nobody on offense, and they're able to come in. Dak's able to throw for 350 yards, and they're able to beat you. I mean, Tolbert's their leading receiver here. He threw to a ton of guys last night. It's a bad loss. We're going to start now, I think, hearing the conversations. Fields was terrible last night. Are we going to have the conversations now? When is Russell going to get a chance to start? Yep. I think one more bad game here does that, but they're 3-2. I hope they keep losing because, God, I don't want to see them in the playoffs. So I hope this team keeps losing, man. I really do.
Yeah, I think that they are. What's their schedule look like next week? They play the Raiders in Las Vegas, and then they play the Jets, the Giants, the Commanders. The problem, those 4 games, then you play Baltimore, you don't sit there and say, oh, well, the Steelers are definitely better than this team. You don't think that in any of those. Right. So I trust Tomlin to beat the Raiders. I trust Tomlin to beat the Jets. And then when you get decent coaches and decent quarterbacks in, it's tough to say you trust anyone on Pittsburgh to beat anyone.
Right.
All right, let's wrap up there. Steelers stink now. I was wrong. Mike was right. Good show today. We'll be back tomorrow doing the Burrows, which I think is going to be the highlight of our week.
Yeah.
Talking baseball tomorrow. We're both very dialed in on the baseball right now. And if you are, then tomorrow is the episode to watch. We might be back Friday as well. We'll see what happens with the games and the division series. But we'll discuss everything tomorrow, Tuesday, 11 o'clock. The Burrows back to our normal time just for this Tuesday, and then we'll keep you updated if the schedule continues to change, and we'll hopefully be back Friday as well if we can both make it work. All right. Be safe, and we will see you tomorrow.